Looks like we've got everybody, right? That's coming.
Yep. Just waiting till 6:30. So here we go. I'll go ahead and call to order the special meeting of the Bay City Independent School District Board of Trustees for our annual Team of Eight training. Pursuant to Governor Abbott's temporary suspension of open meetings laws issued on March 16, 2020, and consistent with new state and local mandates on public health and social distancing, this Team of Eight training of the Bay City ISD Board of Trustees will be conducted via Zoom, which will be audible to the public at the link provided in this agenda. The quorum of the Board of Trustees will not physically be present at one location, and for safety reasons, we will not be permitting in-person attendance by members of the staff or public. If you wish to submit comments for review by the Board of Trustees regarding any agenda item for the January 14, 2021 Team of Eight training, please email them to the Superintendent's Administrative Assistant at the email address listed below. Comments submitted and received by 6 p.m. on January 14th, 2021 will be shared with the board via email. I did receive a message from Linda Estrada that we had no comment as of 6 p.m. I will now take voice roll call. Scardamai is present. Trustee Klepak.
Here.
Trustee Tenon.
Here.
Trustee West.
Here.
Trustee Robinson.
Here.
And Trustee Nelson.
Here.
And Trustee DeWitt had a family emergency and contacted that he would not be able to make it. Item 2, Team of Eight workshop, roles and responsibilities, and our presenter, as always and graciously, is Tony Williams, Region 3. Tony, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back with you again. I love getting to do this, and I can't think of any group I'd rather do it with than Bay City ISD. You guys are on the move and making good things happen, and it's just good to be a part of that. So I'm going to share my screen right now and get started with this presentation. And I'll be honest with you, I have no idea how long this is going to take, because I know you guys like to talk, and that's a good thing. And so, you know, there's plenty of opportunity for everybody to make comments and things tonight. So we want to hear what you have to say. So this is our agenda. We're going to do some brief introductions and group norms. We kind of know each other already, which is a benefit. But then we're going to discuss the whole thing tonight is about governing as a team. We're going to talk about a lot of things that I'm going to pose a lot of situations and ask your opinion on it. And there's some of them that there's definitely a right and wrong answer, and there's some of them that it's real gray. And so those should be interesting discussions. And anyway, we're going to talk about governing as a team. That's what this is all about. And then at the end, don't let me forget, I'm going to need to, I sent you an electronic sign in. And so at the end, I need you to get on that Google form and fill it out and click submit. And that's how we take your attendance and get you credit. And you also get a chance to evaluate me on this presentation. So, you know, we already kind of know each other, which is a great thing, but maybe you could just mention, each of you, one thing that you want to learn tonight, and then something that really makes you proud of Bay City ISD. Dr. Scott, you want to start?
Tony, I definitely thought you were going to start with the board president, but I'll go right ahead. Marshall Scott, superintendent here of Bay City ISD. I am super proud of the progress that our district has made over the past few years, and we continue to be almost the beacon for innovation here in Matagorda County, and even some other school districts around the state. And at this time, what I'm most proud of with our school district is our teachers and their commitment to weather this pandemic and provide, rigorous instruction for our kids, balancing the in-person versus the virtual. We talk about heroes all the time, but if you can actually see what's going on in our classrooms with our teachers, man, I would almost swear that every one of them has a cape in their closet. So super proud of our team. Oh,
So,
and
how
you talk
about
about
you?
one thing I want to learn tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Really and truly, just learn how to gel as a team of 8. How do we actually have productive discourse? Because we're all rowing in the same direction, and as long as we keep that, just that feeling of we're a team. There's nobody on here that I know that doesn't want the best for the school district, and we're all competitive people. And to help us manage the competitiveness in the midst of being a team is something I would definitely like to learn to do better myself.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, James, how about you?
Oh, absolutely. I'll echo what Dr. Scott said. The one thing I want to learn is how we gel as a team, as not as individuals. We all have individual thoughts, but how do we bring those together in a constructive and productive manner? As a new board president, how are our individual roles able to work amongst all 8 of us to be able to accomplish more together, right? The synergy of 8 individual parts, but 8 working together accomplish much more. So I'm excited to learn about the roles and responsibilities and how we can work together. I think I'm not from here, I originally, and so I don't know the Black Cat Way or anything like Trent, and I don't have blue shoes or anything, but the one thing I could say I'm proud of, because my kids go to the school district, is the desire of the entire district, from the top person, Dr. Scott, all the way through his administrative staff and teachers and everybody, is their desire to become better. Academically, the district has thrived. Athletically, we've gotten so much better, and everybody wants to see every aspect of our district become better. Community outreach and our relationships with business partners and community members, we've gotten better at that, and our desire to become even better. So I'm proud of the work and the progress that we've had already.
Very good. Bob, how about you?
Well, I'm not sure of what I want to learn tonight. This is about 9 of these things that I've been a part of, going off the board in May. So I've learned quite a bit in these last 8+ years. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've learned a lot in these last 8+ years, and I've enjoyed working with everyone who's ever been on the board in these last 8+ years. I guess what I'd like to learn tonight is how to not be a board member, but I guess I'll learn that in the next 4 months or so. What makes me proud of being proud of Bay City ISD is being a Black Cat alum. The pride that our district shows each and every day. And right now, I'd like to say that I'm very proud of our teachers, administrators, our superintendent, our staff, and how they've handled everything that's been going on with the pandemic. These are not easy times, as we all know. And we just have some super people, teachers, etc., running our school district. And right now, that's what I'm most proud of. And hopefully we can get back to normal, maybe in the summer, maybe, the next school year. But we have some good people here at Bay City ISD, and we have a good leader in Dr. Scott. He's made so many great decisions for our school district, and we've had a lot of improvements over the last 4+ years. Proud of him as well. So that about sums it up for me.
Thank you, Bob. And Eddie, how about you?
Well, I'm really proud of Bay City High School, Bay City ISD, because I taught in the school for 40 years. So I'm proud to learn new information, proud of our teachers and students, and proud to be a black cat. And these fellows that we wants to become a team, a unit. So we got to learn to like one another and bond with one another. And I've give a lot of thanks to our superintendent who's done a tremendous job. So everybody that's here, man, enjoy this because this is the Bay City Black Cats.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you, Eddie. How about you, Trent?
I would have to say what makes me most proud of Bay City ISD. I mean, at the moment, it would definitely have to be, I'm just going to echo what Dr. Scott and James. I mean, the teachers they've been amazing. I mean, because my mom's a teacher and I've got several family members that are teachers. And so I get to hear, the moans and the groans, but they've always found a way to, found their grit and to overcome all the obstacles they've had to overcome this last year or so. And I mean, I can't be any more proud of what they've done and still delivered a, stellar education to these kiddos. I'm also proud. I mean, of course, I graduated from Bay City High School as well. So, I mean, and yes, I do have blue shoes that I am proud of. One thing I want to learn tonight, kind of the same thing, just to learn how to be cohesive as a team. I mean, I think that when you initially run for school board, of course you have, I feel like everybody has the same ultimate goal is to make Bay City ISD the best possible school district you can make it, or the best around. And we may have different ideas on how to get to that goal, but I feel like we all have ultimately pretty much the same goals. And so how do we figure out how to take all these ideas and get to this and reach the same goal?
Mm-hmm. Very good. I think tonight's going to really help you with that. How about you, Mark?
Thanks, Tony. The thing that I'm most proud about is that our district, I think, is the best in the county and the best in the area, maybe the best in the state, in that we don't pick and choose. We take every kid, no matter the color, no matter the economic background, no matter whatever, and we love them and we educate them and we do the best that we can, and I just absolutely love that about our district. And I mean, sometimes we could do better, of course, but we always, I think, do an amazing job. And that goes down to the teachers, but not just the teachers, our faculty and staff. It goes all the way down to the janitors. You can see janitors hugging kids in hallways. I mean, you can see it all the way through the district. And that really speaks a lot to me. What I want to learn tonight is I'm a new board member. And whenever you're running, whenever you're thinking about running, you're always thinking, man, whenever I'm on the school board, I want to do this and I want this to happen and this is what I'm going to get done and all this. And I want to learn how I can turn the I wants to what we're going to do. That's what I want to get mostly out of this, is how all the I's for all of us can turn into the we's, and how we can get all of our individual boats all rowing in the same direction, all on the same ship, and get all going in one uniform pattern.
Very nice. And that will make a huge difference, won't it? And Priscilla?
Well, I guess what I want to learn is everything, because I know nothing. So what I want to learn is everything that I need to do to learn to make a difference on this board. And what makes me proud is just being in this community, born and raised, probably die right here. So to me, it's an honor to serve on this board and to be a part of this team. I've learned a long time ago, it's not an I in team, but I want these guys to understand that being a woman, I am a little bossy. I get to be a little bossy. So I want you to overlook that and just see where my heart is. And I think it's in the same place as everyone else is on this board. So that's where I am right now.
Very good. Thank you very much, Priscilla. And I would have to disagree with you on one thing. You said you don't know anything. I've had you in a couple other workshops lately. I have to object to that. I think you know quite a bit about the field of education. And you're going to be able
Thank
to
you.
be a real
Well,
help.
thank you.
So I know there's one other board member tied in, right? Or is that? I'm not sure if I don't see the name on the list.
He had a family emergency. He couldn't make it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have a couple of other people tied in, but I don't think they're board members.
Those are technical people. If
Okay.
this thing's haywire, Aaron's going to pull us out of the fire.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. All right. Well, thank you very much. And I can tell you from your comments, you have a lot to be proud of in Bay City, not just from what you said, but I can tell you from somebody who's looking on and who's been in the area for many years. I've lived in Jackson County since 1984, and we're your neighbor. And you have a lot to be proud of right now about your school district. And I see a lot of good things happening. But I think some of you made the comments, you all had the comments about how to work together to bring the team together so that you can create that synergy that's needed to go to the next level. You're exactly right. That is what's needed to go to the next level. And it starts with the board. It starts with you, because what happens in the boardroom, don't forget, it filters straight down into the classroom. It affects the teachers. It affects the kids every single time. So let's just talk about some group norms and ground rules for tonight. We're going to keep the goal in mind, and that is team building. I want you to speak freely and constructively. Focus on improvement suggestions on the team, not on individuals. Seek first to understand. If you hear some comment that you just makes your hair stand up on the back of your neck, just count to 10. Think about it. Try to understand another person's perspective, as you work together, and learn something tonight. And then also, finally, have fun, because that's what you should be able to do through. I think you're going to enjoy the format. We're going to have a lot of back and forth talk together. So let's just discuss briefly the school board's authority in the law. The Texas Education Code, which is school law, it says that board members function as a body corporate, and they have the exclusive power and duty to govern and oversee the management of the public schools of the district. That's your commission. You function not as individuals, but as a body corporate. The board has to act only on a majority vote of the members present at a meeting held in compliance with Chapter 551, at which a quorum of the board is present and voting. And here's something very important. Unless authorized by the board, a member of the board may not individually act on behalf of the board. And that's something that's very important to remember. So you're a team together. So part of your role is an oversight role. An independent school district is governed by the Board of Trustees to oversee the management of the district. And as you work together, you're going to grow in your trust for each other and for Dr. Scott. And that's as it should be. But still, you still have to oversee. You can't just allow everything to just go without oversight. And then also, it's your job in that way to ensure that the superintendent implements and monitors the plans, procedures, programs, and systems. So the governing role is to create a vision statement and live by it, and then a set of comprehensive goals for the district to operate under and for the superintendent to implement. So you establish these goals and put them in writing and make them as simple and as short as possible. You know what we talked about during that ISO training, less is more. Having a few goals that you perform very well on is more important than having a lot of goals and you don't get to any of them. And they really should be focused on student outcomes, how to make the kids do better at school and preparing them for the future. And finally, you're accountable for making sure the superintendent's accountable to help achieve the performance levels that you set. So what we're going to start off with is a little activity to decide, just to look at some of the roles of the board and some of the roles of the superintendent. So I'm going to put this, I'm going to stop this PowerPoint here, and I'm going to go down here and I am going to share a Word document, and I'm going to type while you guys talk. So can you all see that?
Yep.
It says roles and responsibilities, and then it says the board. So we're going to start off with the board. So tell me, what are some of your responsibilities as a board?
I'll get kicked off. Approving the budget that has been prepared by the superintendent. So there's two of them, one on each side.
Okay, so we've got approve the budget, and then we've got down here, we're going to have prepare the budget. Shrink that down just a little bit. Okay, and what's another role?
Our superintendent.
All right.
Create policy.
Okay. Should we say create and adopt?
That work.
Okay. Okay. What's another role that you have as a board member?
The one above it should be hire and fire superintendent, right? Or hire and let go, or whatever you want to call it.
Hire, evaluate,
Yeah.
and replace superintendent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what else?
I'll say the superintendent hires and lets go employees, and the board approves the employment of personnel that's been recommended.
Okay. Interview. Let's just say this. Let's just say recruit, interview, and recommend employees. Right? Okay, what else? Either category.
And then we approve the employees.
Okay, right. Chapter 21 employees, which means those that are under a contract. Now, let me ask you something. Do you have to have give your business manager a contract?
You don't have to. It's a good idea to.
Yeah, I think so too. Why do you not have to? Which employees have to have a contract?
Teachers.
Teachers, yeah.
Superintendent.
Generally-
the
What's that,
employees
Dr.
who are in
Scott?
a position that require a certification.
There you go. Exactly. A certification, license. But now that doesn't mean you can't give a Chapter 21 contract to like a maintenance director or a business manager. And why would you want to even think about doing that?
If they're vital to your district, or then I mean it'd be a good idea to make sure that they don't up and leave in the middle of the year and put everything cattywampus.
Yeah, I had a business manager who was a CPA in a small district with 1,250 kids, and she was one of my former students, and she was as honest as the days are long. I gave her a 2-year contract. I didn't want to lose her. They're hard to find. Okay, good point. So another role, and where would it fit?
Superintendent is the chief operating officer of the district.
Very good. So chief operating officer. So that's kind of like all other duties, right? That the board doesn't have.
Day to day.
Yeah, day-to-day operations. That's a better way to say it. Now, who will hear complaints?
Board
But-
members.
Yeah, you're going to.
Superintendent first, but then the board.
Both groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're both going to hear them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what would be, let's just talk about what's the board's responsibility when it comes to complaints. You're going to hear them. So what else do you do?
I would say just if we get a complaint, I mean, usually my answer is just to make sure, first I'll ask a question to make sure they went through all the right channels to begin with to make it up to the board.
Right.
Starting with, say, their principal on their campus, if it's a teacher, for instance, or a
Right.
parent.
Hear and refer complaints. And then, so you're, let me just add that chain of command. That's great. Very good. Now, what is the superintendent's role when it comes to complaints?
Okay, I guess this one is for me. But my role is actually to investigate any complaint that comes in into the school district, and as a practice, relay those complaints directly to the people who have who are closest enough with the authority to make the decision in resolving them, i.e. the principals, i.e. Teachers. If it's a classroom complaint, send that to the principal so they can have an opportunity to let the teacher respond prior to my actually intervening. If it's a principal, send that to the principal. Whoever has the authority to address or the resolution to address a concern should be the person addressing it first.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Very good. So, what about when it comes to talking to the media? Whose in responsibility is that in your district?
Chief Communications Officer.
So you have a communications officer, okay? So that would come under administration then, right?
Yeah, it actually be my responsibility at this, but it depends on what it is as well. Because there's also a stipulation that I know that the board president in their operating procedures, that the board president would represent the district or the board in some situations, I believe, as the spokesperson.
It's good to have a person designated or persons so that you're giving a unified message, and that it's one where you've actually got the facts that you can relay. So it's good to have somebody to do that. What else can you think of that are duties?
Well, duty for me is to ensure that everyone in the school district is evaluated in a timely manner by policy.
So if a contracted person is not evaluated annually, what does the law say?
I'd have to go and look at that one, honestly.
Yeah, they're not supposed to get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't give out public money if they're not being evaluated. So they have to be evaluated. That's good. And so it's the superintendent's job to ensure that. So what's another role that the board has? What about when it comes to public relations?
Yeah,
What's your,
the board engages the community as well as a representative of the school district.
that's why your life changes when you get on the board, right?
Hmm.
It really does. I mean, you now you become a part of a team, and it just it's a little different. It's a little different from what you're used to when you're not on the board. So this is really a good list. It's probably not everything. I mean, also the superintendent, when it says day-to-day operations, that includes maintenance, it includes transportation, it includes staying in touch with what's going on in the state as far as the laws. We got this legislative session going on right now, and I don't know about Dr. Scott, but I was always nervous during a legislative session. You know, what is coming next, and how much is it going to cost me? So, you know, you're always looking at those kinds of things. There is so many things to it, but that's a pretty good list. So good job in generating that. And we're going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation and look at some more aspects of this. So here are just some responsibilities, some general ideas, general statements about responsibilities of the board and the superintendent. The board governs and oversees. That's part of your role. You guide, you direct, you represent the public interest, and you decide what. But on the other side of the spectrum, the superintendent manages, implements, operates, acts in the public interest, and decides how. So what can happen if board members wander over into one of those roles that's described under the superintendent? What can happen?
Create a liability for themselves and the board.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, definitely.
You undermine the superintendent's authority.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Those are excellent points. And so it's real important that you collaborate together and work together and stay in your role. That's critical. And so we're going to see this as we go through this presentation tonight. In fact, a team of 8 can be just like driving down the highway. You know, you're safe and sound as long as everyone stays in their lane. After Hurricane Harvey, I went down to Rockport, Texas a lot, and I worked down there doing disaster relief a lot. And that's that long Highway 35, you know, from Port Lavaca to Rockport. Man, it's easy for people to wander into your lane, and it's a scary thing. As long as you stay in your lane as a board member or a superintendent, then it's like a peaceful drive through the country. But the minute you get out of your lane, you know, it can be a head-on collision, and it can cause all kinds of problems up in the school district. And we're going to look at some samples of things that could happen. So let's play a little game right now. Let's play this game. Whose role is it? Okay. So here's the 3 roles: the board's role, the superintendent's role, or it's the board and the superintendent in collaboration. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to put up a situation, a scenario, and you're going to tell me if it's the board's role, the superintendent's role, or if it's the board and the superintendent in collaboration. So a teacher wants to go to a curriculum workshop. Whose role is that?
Superintendent.
Yeah, that's right. The bell goes ding, 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 ding. You got points on that one. Good deal. All right. Yes. So that's not something they would go talk to a board member about to try to get approval for. To cut a program and staff to avoid using fund balance to balance a board adopted budget. Now, I kind of loaded that one a little bit. So board.
It's board.
Collaboration, I would say, would be both.
Yeah.
Eddie says that's the board.
Board and soup.
There you go. What do you think, Dr. Scott?
The very first part, it deals with the day-to-day. When you come into talking about balancing the budget for the board to approve, then the board would definitely have to have some input there. So I would say both.
Yeah,
But
it's definitely, that's just, I mean, we've all read about and observed superintendents who take on action that really belongs at the board table. And, you know, you can really commit suicide doing that kind of stuff. I mean, sometimes it's the right thing to do, but you know, one of the best things you can do as a team of 8 is communicate when it comes down to these things. Okay, very good, very good. So whose role is this? To propose standards for evaluating achievement of student goals.
Superintendent.
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 Exactly. Now, closely related to that, adopt standards for evaluating progress for achieving student performance goals.
Board.
Board.
That's right. That's right. So proposing the standards, that's the superintendent's job. Adopting them is yours. Now, before you would adopt them, though, what are you going to do?
Collaborate.
Yeah, you're going to
Collaborate with one another in the soup.
exactly. I tell you, when I was there for that ISO meeting, I was real impressed with the level of collaboration you guys had over that. That was excellent that you had such a good discussion about all the student groups, looking at how to help all the kids be successful. So that was nice. And that's the way it should be. So whose role is it to determine the qualifications to be posted when advertising for a new kindergarten teacher?
Superintendent.
Superintendent.
Are you sure?
Superintendent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, now I'm gonna throw a fast one at you. Okay, you ready?
Ready.
Determine the qualifications to be posted when advertising for a new athletic director. Now whose job is it?
That was a
That's
collaborative.
board and superintendent.
Yeah,
Board and superintendent.
yeah. What do you think, Dr. Scott?
The answer should be the same for both of them.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. I did that to you on purpose. Because, you know, we do tend to think, and, you know, athletic director does affect a lot of kids' lives. And I just started thinking today about the number. You know, an athletic director is going to affect more kids than one kindergarten teacher. But the kids that are affected very greatly by that kindergarten teacher. So really, when it comes to those qualifications, I agree with Dr. Scott. It should be the same. They should be the same. But in the community, where do you get a lot of your concerns from, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it does come from around the athletic department. So there is one thing different, though. I've always known these athletic directors, if you go to them after football season, a couple of weeks after the season, and say, hey, you know, you probably just want to go look for another job because we're going to move on. Most of those guys, they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. I mean, they may not like it, but they're used to that. I don't think too many kindergarten teachers would feel that way after half a year. So, you know, there's a lot more pressure on the athletic director. We get that. I understand your comments. Whose role is this? To interview the finalists and select a new custodial services supervisor.
Superintendent.
Superintendent.
Yes, definitely. To evaluate the performance and recommend the reemployment of a first-year teacher.
Superintendent.
Superintendent.
There you go. That's right. And then to adopt district goals for the new school year.
The board.
Board.
That's right. That's clearly 100% the board's role, right?
Right.
So whose role is this? To determine how money budgeted for the instructional supplies is allocated to the campuses.
Superintendent.
Superintendent.
Yeah, so now wait a minute. What if the board started dipping into that work? Then what are you going to have to deal with? Think it through. Think it through a little bit.
About to become a team then. About to unify with one another. Comply with one another.
And if you started deciding though how much money was going to be allocated to each campus, then what would you have? Who would be calling you all the time, trying to?
The principals,
Yeah,
the teachers, each campus, all the staff, everybody.
yeah. So really, that's not in your role to determine how much supply money goes to each campus. Now, every team of 8 is going to function a little different. The one that I worked with for 11 years, they liked more disclosure than less. They wanted to know how I was dividing it up, but they let me do it. And they would tell me what they thought. But I mean, it didn't really impact what we did at the end of the day as far as dividing the funds. We had real reasons behind each reason, each way we divided it. So again, having that communication is a good thing, but the superintendent needs to make that decision. Determine priorities to place on increasing the district's college readiness program or performance.
Superintendent.
I would say both.
Yeah.
You could go, yeah, I mean, when I see questions like that, I mean, the answer is almost obvious. It's the superintendent, but most of the time he brings that stuff to us because he knows it's such an important decision. Like the whole athletic director was a conversation that was led by Dr. Scott. It was his responsibility to hire, but he wanted all of our inputs. I think something like this, he would absolutely bring to us in a meeting, and so he could get our inputs before he went and did something or even recommended something, right?
Yeah. James, how long have you been on the board?
2 years.
You speak like you've been on the board 10 years.
Feels
That's
like it.
that's board work, man. That's when you've got a good team with a good superintendent that brings you those kinds of things and gets your thoughts on them. And then when you can support his decisions, even when they're not exactly what you wanted yourself, but you see that it's the will of the group, now you're heading in the right direction. So whose role is this? To adopt new programs designed to increase college readiness.
The board.
Board.
Clearly the board. The superintendent would develop those and bring them to you, but it's your job to question him about it and then to finally adopt whatever he recommends. If it isn't what you want the first time, he brings a second recommendation, a third, whatever it takes. So ask voters for a tax increase to build new schools. Whose job is that?
That's the board.
You're right. That is the board. And then to review and recommend a new textbook. Whose job is that?
That's the board and superintendent.
Well, yeah, you're gonna approve them, right? The instructional materials. As far as like reviewing them though, and making the recommendation, who would that be?
Superintendent.
The superintendent.
Right. And then you'll have the final word when you approve those things. Very good. So whose role is this? To offer a new elective course in engineering graphics.
It's the superintendent.
Superintendent.
Okay, but does he just go in adding courses all by himself, or what might he do?
No,
he's
he
got his
brings to
principles. He's got his principles and his other people help him.
Yeah, so how many of you would not want an engineering graphics class? Anybody not want one? I don't think so, right? But what about this one? To offer a new elective course in world religions. Now, whose responsibility is that?
That'd have to be superintendent and board and superintendent.
Yeah, is there a difference? Is there a difference between these two? What's the difference?
I mean, they're both educational.
Mhm.
One of them borders on potentially influencing a student, and you would have to be careful how you deliver that instruction, not to mess with any, liberties.
So Tony, let me push back a little bit here.
Okay, good.
In my approach, I get where you're going with the second one, and I see the controversy around what could possibly happen. Well, I would also say the first one is my decision, but I still should take it to the board.
Mhm.
Because if in fact there's an engineering program that I'm putting forward and it doesn't align with where we're going with our programs and our district initiatives and our strategic plan, then I'm way out of bounds as a superintendent with what we've agreed upon as a district.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to adding new courses, really, that's something that should be brought before the board for any course. And that's a really good point, Dr. Scott. But this last one here, is there going to be possibly some potential controversy if
Gonna
you
be a
start
lot of
having
controversy. Gonna be a lot of controversy because you got all kinds of religion.
yeah, and different views on things, so people can get hot quick. So it's good to have everybody on the same team on that.
Right.
Okay, so what about approving the required reading list for high school English classes?
Well, that's superintendent.
Most districts, I would say that's probably the way that happens.
I mean,
What could be
that falls in line with the approving the curriculum, right?
Yes, reading list depends on how they're handling it, right? It could be free reading, it could be reading for a grade, it could be, I didn't specify. So what would you do with that, Dr. Scott, if you had a high school reading list?
I would definitely, the very first thing I would do is convene a committee of teachers at the high school level to actually review those. And then based on the teacher's recommendation, I probably wouldn't make it a board item, but I would definitely share it with the board members and say, here's some of the books that we actually have coming out, because in reality, some of the reading lists for high school at this point could be controversial. So just giving everyone a heads up about where we are and where our teachers want to go and how they believe it's going to add to the rigor in their courses, but then definitely give the board a heads up about where we're going with that.
Yeah. And one of the things I've seen some superintendents do when it comes to reading lists is making it clear to parents that if they want another option for their child instead of reading that book,
Absolutely.
we're totally good with that.
Yes.
And they just have to request it. So good discussion. Good discussion. So whose role is this? To monitor board member behaviors.
Everybody.
That's a good one.
The board president.
That's a good one.
Hate to say it, James, but you know what? It's a big role. The board president has to, step in and help mitigate issues sometimes and take control of a meeting sometimes. And I've seen it done very well, and I've seen it done very poorly. And so most of the time, this is just not an issue. But I mean, we've heard of things going way crazy. So
I would say,
what about this? Go ahead, Dr. Scott. Or
No.
James, would say you.
I would just say we're very fortunate to have a very good board, and everyone does a really good job at recognizing that they are representing the district in their public lives. So
Yeah.
we'll leave it at that. We have great conversations and meetings, and we've never had to shut a meeting down or bang a gavel. So
That's good. Very good. So whose role is it to keep board work meaningful and rewarding?
President.
every board member.
It's all our responsibility.
Yeah. And as a superintendent, I would usually tell the board when they're coming in the door, this is going to be a meeting you're going to enjoy. It's when we get to really do some real board work. And then there's some of those that are you're just taking care of stuff you got to do, and you try to make it meaningful as you can. But you're right. Everybody has a play in that. All right. So I hope you enjoyed that little game we just played. Whose role is it? And you can see that there's some of these it's easy, and some of them were like, not so easy. So maybe you've seen this before. I don't know if you have or not, but we can learn a lot about leadership and oversight from Jerry Jones. And, you know, Jerry Jones is the famed owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and he's got quite a reputation, doesn't he, for maybe being a little over involved as an owner. But when Jerry is over here on the sidelines cheering everybody on, we would say, good Jerry. That's his role, right? When he's up here in the press box and he's getting that 30,000-foot view and he's checking everything out, we would have to say, good Jerry, good job. But when Jerry gets down here on the field and he's up in the coach's face and telling him what to do, yeah, basically telling him his job, bad Jerry. That's not what he should do. So there's some things we can learn from looking at the example of Jerry Jones. And he's been very successful as a businessman and as a NFL owner. I'm not putting him down. I'm just saying that we can all learn. So if I've got any really like diehard Cowboy fans, all I can tell you is I'm sorry. Kinda. I had a friend of mine tell me that if I didn't want to catch anything during this pandemic, I should wear a Cowboy jersey. But y'all don't think that's very funny either. So we got a lot of Cowboys fans here, Dr. Scott. I should probably just stop that right now, right? So let's talk about goals and vision and not strategy. Boards can't get involved in the strategy part, the how we're going to do things. Boards do the what and the why. And the superintendents and their team determine how, when, and who. And as long as we keep it in that realm, then we work together pretty well. And if a superintendent keeps the board in the loop, like we've been hearing you speak, that like when you talked about your athletic director and choosing them, Dr. Scott brought those thoughts to you and made sure he understood where you wanted to go with it. That's good teamwork. So you've probably seen this before, the governance clock, and we're just going to review it real quickly and just call out to me what you see as a board role or as a superintendent's role. So when it comes to adopting visions and goals, whose is that?
That's
The board's role.
board and superintendent.
Okay, working collaboratively, but basically the board would adopt, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there we go. And so what about when we comes to adopting policies?
Board.
That's board.
Board. How about developing plans and regulations based on policy?
That's board.
That's superintendent.
Right. That one would be the superintendent. Very good. And then how about implementing the operations?
Superintendent.
Superintendent.
There you go. Right. And then evaluating the progress?
Superintendent.
Exactly. But now what about evaluating the outcomes?
Board.
Board.
The board. That's right. So there's a line down the middle. There's board authority and oversight of management, and then there's superintendent authority making the recommendations. That's the difference between governance and management. So here's something to think about. There's many common misperceptions out there in the community. As a board member, my neighbor thinks what? How would you fill in the blank?
Thinks I only go to one meeting a month.
That's true.
You could say my neighbor thinks that I can pretty much make anything happen within the school district, which we all know that's not true.
Exactly. So if my neighbor only knew, well, how would you fill in that blank?
That it's a team of 8 and not just me.
Yeah. The amount of time that it takes.
Exactly. Good points. So very good. So now when it comes to handling complaints, let's talk about these things here. If you have a personal complaint between one of you, like you're just not, you have a difference with each other, what's the best way to handle it? During executive session or face-to-face?
I mean, my thought is if I had a problem with someone, I would handle that between me and them. I would try anyways for that first.
That's good. If you were going to try to handle that in executive session, what would have to happen for that to be discussed in executive session?
It'd be an agenda item.
Yeah, it'd have to be listed. I mean, and I don't even think that'd
get ugly.
Yeah, and it's not even one of the things you can do in executive session. So good point. Individual complaints from citizens.
Yep, refer them to the appropriate.
Come in.
Yeah, the closest person to the situation.
That's right.
Chain of
Because
command.
if you start going and investigating every complaint, people will wear you out, and it's not your role.
Hold
It's
on,
not your
Tom.
role.
Let me ask a question here, because if there's an issue at a campus, you're saying the trustee should send that to the building principal?
No.
Yeah,
No.
those should, like, the complaints should come directly to the superintendent, and then just based on the procedures, then I'll handle those as appropriate.
Right. Yes. Now, in conversation with people, whenever, and it's however you line it out for them and you folks agree on it. What I used to tell my board members is, if you're talking to somebody in the community and they're complaining about something, I want you to listen with empathy.
Mhm.
And then I want you to direct them to the closest place to the problem to get a solution. And as soon as you leave, call me immediately and tell me what the problem was. And then you're done. It's not your job to go investigate or get back to them or anything like that. And so that's kind of how you roll too, right, Dr. Scott?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. That's what we meant.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, 90% of the complaints you get from a citizen, say, a parent, the parent has not even reached out, because most of the issues would be with the teacher, I would assume. The parent has not even reached out to that teacher. So, I mean, that's where I send them first. I mean, if they have an issue, because usually it's not anything major. It's usually something that can be handled with a conversation with the teacher. So
Exactly. And then, but who's the clearinghouse for all that information in the district?
Superintendent.
Exactly. That's right, Eddie. So let me tell you a little experience I had one time. I'm in a closed session and we're talking about a student discipline matter that was on the agenda for closed session. We get down into the discussion and I present the school side of it and the student side. And then this board member tells me, oh, well, 3 weeks ago, I heard from the parent and they told me this and that. And I'm like, and you didn't think to call me when you heard that? You're going to bring that up right now. Can you imagine how much that would have helped me had I have known that 3 weeks ago? So that's a very important part of it, is to make sure you communicate those complaints that you do hear. And sometimes you may hear so many, but have a little conversation with the soup and let them know.
Tony, I can vouch for the board, now that I have to, that they do a really good job of that. Whether it's a heads up, whether it's an email, just want you to know that this is going on, and or this may be coming your way. So I really appreciate that.
That's good. That's what you want. So let's talk about teamwork and commitment for a little bit. All of you were talking about at the beginning of the meeting, that's something that you wanted to see how to do better. So Vince Lombardi said this. He said, individual commitment to a group effort. That's what makes a team work, a company work, a society work, a civilization work. And so that's what's going to make Bay City ISD better. It takes a united commitment, a unified commitment, a serious individual investment of time and energy, and dedication to the team, and willingness to expand extraordinary amounts of time and energy to ensure that it's effective. And so what matters in the real world, the integrity of the board is important. And we shouldn't use the board, our time around the board table, to push our own personal agendas when it comes to like something to position our family in a better position, or put our business in a better position, or to promote some ideology that we may have, or to use religious, athletic, racial, ethnic, or even academic things to position ourselves in a better, or some of our people that we're close to in a better place, or we shouldn't use our position on the board to fight some vendetta that we have with somebody. And so once people get on the board, they realize they get the sense of the fact that it's a team, it's a team effort and everybody has to work together. So in the real world, this really matters. So individually, we have to support team decisions. And when we do that, these things are important right here. We need to make sure that policies are followed, that due process is given, and that values are honored. And that means across the board, we hear everybody's thoughts and without judgment, really listen. And then think, is the decision reasonable? And it's not, was the decision exactly what I want or we would have done? And then when you go to that door to walk out of the room, even if it was a 4-3 vote, what's it going to walk out like?
7-0.
It's going to walk out like 7-0. That's right. And I can tell you, there were times I made recommendations to the board as a superintendent that they didn't go with. And I ended up coming back with another recommendation that I didn't really believe in as much, but the board backed it and voted for it. And you know what? When I walked out of there as a superintendent, I was on their team, and that's what I was going to do, 100%. And if people would ask me, well, but you didn't get what you first recommended. No, but hey, we got something better. We got something we're all wrapped around. We're all ready for it. And so it's very important that we approach things like that. There has to be a unified commitment. The greater the loyalty to the group, the greater is the motivation among the members to achieve the goals of the group, and the greater the probability that the group will achieve the goals. And it's really true that loyalty to the group is definitely important. So now I'm gonna show you 6 different general types of decisions that confront the team of 8. I'm gonna show you the example, and then I'm gonna ask you who's responsible for this general decision area. And then I'm gonna share with you what the board's mindset should be when it comes to that item. Okay, so decision number 1, when it comes to policy and budget decisions, whose decision is that?
Board.
I mean, the super
Yes,
recommends it, but the board, approves it.
exactly. So the board makes the decision and accepts the responsibility for it. But in parentheses, we say the board will usually expect a recommendation and information from the superintendent. And so the board's mindset on this is, we're committed to the work and we accept responsibility for these decisions. And we consider background information and data before we decide. Now here's a second type of decision. District goals and strategic planning.
I mean, that's a collaborative effort that
That's
is all
both.
approved by the board.
Both.
Exactly. School board and administration should attempt to reach a consensus and both parties should accept responsibility. So here's the board's mindset. Some issues require that we're all on the same page and committed to outcomes. These areas take extra work to ensure that all voices are heard and considered and that we monitor results of these decisions. Here's a third type of decision. Consent agenda items and hiring certain staff.
That's board approval.
Okay. Yeah, the school board is legally required to make the decision. However, the board should strongly consider the judgment of the administration who will be held accountable. Very good. And so the board's mindset is that the law or policy requires us to make certain decisions. However, we won't use this as an opportunity to take over those functions. And so you use a consent agenda, Dr. Scott?
Yes.
Okay. How do you like that? Do you find it is helpful moving the meetings along?
It does, but we're probably not going to put very many employment items under a consent agenda. But
So
yeah,
if you're,
it will help. I mean, for some of the things that the board can actually go in and read, and typically they'll be in a consensus about. Yeah, it helps the meeting to go along a little quicker.
yeah. So Eddie, how long have you been on the board?
Me,
Yeah.
6 years, but I was a school teacher for 40.
Okay. So Bob and Eddie probably have the most experience on the board right now. Is that right?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. So I'm going to go with the senior members here, and I'm going to ask them a question. When you have consent agenda items, what do you do to get prepared so when you get to the meeting, you know you can vote for it?
What I always do is I go to board book and research all of those items before the meeting.
Before the meeting, right? And if you come across something you don't understand, then what do you do before the meeting?
Well, normally, whenever we get the consent agenda, I usually, as president, I usually ask if there'd be one that needed to be removed by a board member for further discussion.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we handle that.
That's good. Yeah, and you can always call the day or two before the board meeting and get your questions answered, right? So that the meeting can move smoother. That's why you have a consent agenda, to stay focused on the most important things.
Well,
So here's
that's what that individual board member would do prior to the meeting, is research it.
Exactly. And so here's another type of decision: possibly controversial topics, plans for key district hires. Whose role is that? Whose decision is that?
That's the superintendent, the administrator, to get everything they need.
Very good, Eddie. That's correct. So the administration makes those decisions, and here's the board's mindset. We realize that some of the superintendent's decisions may have an impact on the district in a way that affects all of us. We welcome the chance to give feedback, but we understand that we should not make these decisions because that's his role. Now, decision number 5, emergency management. Who wants it?
I think that's one of the,
Administration.
we authorize the superintendent to make those decisions.
Yes.
Administration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I like this comment here. Kindergartners like surprises, board members don't. We know it's your call, but our position in the community creates a need for us to know soon after a decision is made. And I lost a student and an employee on an icy bridge one morning, my first year. So anytime there was a threat of ice on the roads, our school was probably going to be shut down until 10 or 11 o'clock. And we didn't take those decisions lightly. And so superintendents don't. They know that this safety of the kids and the teachers is of ultimate importance. Now, here's another type of decision: minor purchases and daily request approvals. Whose is that?
That's administrators.
Exactly. The superintendent does, administration does all those routine decisions. The superintendent knows our expectations for the district, and he or she can and should make certain decisions on a day-to-day basis that don't call for our assistance or input. Very good. So here are some scenarios. What we're going to do now, we've talked about teamwork, we've talked about our role. Let's look at some specific situations that challenge board members and administrators. So there's a neighbor that's concerned about discipline at a particular campus and ask you to visit her child's classroom to find out what is really going on. What do you do with that?
Well, since it's a campus issue, I think I would refer them immediately to Dr. Scott, and I would inform that person and listen empathetically and show that I was concerned. But Let them know that I could not and will not get involved in that investigation, because if it did come before the board at a later date, that I would need to be removed from the situation so I can have an unbiased look at it as it came before the board.
That's a great answer, James. Very good.
And not that, but it would be another situation where we would inform Dr. Scott, say, hey, this is coming down the pipe.
Exactly. He needs to know. Thank you, Trent. So here's another one. A news reporter has just stuck a microphone in your face and asked you a technical question about the 8% proposed increase in tax. And we're not going to let James answer this or Dr. Scott, because they may have, in the board operating procedures, they may have the ability to speak. But what about the rest of you? What will you do?
You could answer the question, but you need to say that you're not speaking on behalf of the board. You're speaking on from your own perspective, or you could refer that to the board president.
Yeah. Be best in those situations, if you've got a spokesperson, then you say, you know what, I'm glad you're asking that. That's a very good question. Could I give you the phone number of our spokesperson? And that they can answer those questions for the district. I'd really prefer that. You know, you're nice to them. You don't want to make them mad, but you just refer them to the person. Now, this is not probably as controversial a subject as some you might be asked about. So it's always good to have, when something comes up like that, to have it clearly identified who the spokesperson is and not get drawn into a conversation about it and giving personal opinions and that kind of thing, because it can't do any good for the district or for you. So here's another scenario. It's a board meeting and the agenda being addressed is public comment. A speaker from the audience has just made what you consider to be an outrageous, slanderous comment about a specific teacher. Now we'll let James comment.
My experience watching Bob run meetings, I mean, he's always been really, really good about informing a public commenter that they're not to address an employee or a member specifically by name. And as soon as they do or try to, then you make sure to let them know that, you know, we're not going to hear this. And if they have a specific complaint that about an individual, that it needs to be brought before the superintendent, but not at a public meeting.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, that really challenges a board president. There are some times when the board president is very challenged with situations that are controversial, and we appreciate you, board presidents, stepping up for that task. Thank you very much. And then as a new board member, you're torn between being a team player and representing your own point of view. How do you handle this situation for the betterment of the district?
And I don't think there's anything wrong with, you know, having your own point of view, of course, but you also have to be open-minded to, you know, the other team members' point of views as well, and, you know, open up for discussion and go from there.
Very good. That was an excellent answer.
Keep the discussion constructive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
I think you do one and then the other. You represent your own point of view, and then once the team has come to a consensus, you're on the team. You know, there's no, well, the board approved it, but I thought we should do this. You know, all that goes out the window as soon as the vote happens.
Yeah, and where it gets challenging is when we are very passionate about an issue, and when you get to know each other really well, you realize who's passionate and about what. And so we all need to be tolerant with each other to express ourselves. Sometimes we might do it a little bit more passionately than others. You always want to try to be respectful, but let's face it, we're humans. And sometimes we're going to speak our mind, right? And we all just have to understand each other and give each other room to have their own opinion. And I would always tell my board, they would come and apologize to me after a meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't vote for that. We get a 5-2 vote or a 4-3 vote. I'd say, no, you vote what your passion is, what you believe is right. And when that board votes and if four vote one way, then that's the way we're going. But don't feel bad about it. You should represent your point of view. So here's another one that can be difficult. The school carnival is soon approaching. And as volunteers work to set up booths, recent board action concerning a teacher put on administrative leave is brought up. You're a board member and a parent volunteer. How do you handle this situation?
I would just make it very clear to whoever I'm speaking with that as a board member, I can't discuss that.
Yeah, very good. And this will happen, right? And things come up that we just can't discuss. And sometimes just changing the subject, can be the way to do it. So here's another scenario. A board member receives a call from a campus teacher expressing her disappointment in the selection of a new campus principal. She provides details to the principal's personal background that she was told by a quote unquote reliable source. What do you do?
I think you refer her to her actual supervisor, not, you as a board member or not her supervisor. And then you call Dr. Scott, give him a heads up that it's coming his way.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely one for Dr. Scott. And are mistakes sometimes made, or is there sometimes something that comes out later that you find out that's not grievous? It's not going to keep them from working there, but it could become an issue. Does that ever happen, Dr. Scott?
Yes. So Tony, for us, the large portion of, even in this scenario of hiring a principal, happens at the campus level. So for the board can actually just refer back to the process to say, you had a team of teachers, parents, community members who sat on, and they came to a consensus in recommending this person or these individuals for the board. I mean, if you want to engage, I wouldn't engage in the background piece though, but I would pretty much go back to the process, or you don't respond to it, which would that's kind of hard though. I mean, for a trustee, I see that being hard if this is being posed to you to just walk away from it.
You can always thank them for their input and let them know that you'll inform the superintendent. But you could also direct them to express their concerns to the superintendent. Or like Dr. Scott said, it depends on the situation, right? And what you hear, but it'd be good for Dr. Scott to get a heads up and know about that ahead of time. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at another one. During a closed executive session, the board discusses a personnel matter which has been posted on the agenda. Once finished, a board member asks about the discipline decision made at the junior high campus, but this is not on the agenda. What do you do?
I think either the superintendent or the board president should immediately just bring to light that that's not something we can talk about, and if we need to discuss that, then we need to put that on an agenda and post it and have another meeting. Very
good. That's right. That's the right answer. And we're all human, and sometimes things happen, and if we get reminded in one of those situations that we're a little out of order, maybe it wouldn't be told to us that way. We shouldn't. I mean, it's going to hurt a little bit, right? But we shouldn't just be offended to the point where we're not going to talk to the person that points it out. I mean, that's just, if we're out of order, we're out of order, and we might make a mistake. So we want to self-police each other and help each other. So I don't want you to answer this time. I just want to go back through this again, and I want you to just think for yourself for a minute. Where am I? Where am I on the governance clock? think about where you spend your mental and emotional energy as a member of the team of 8. When everybody stays in their role, things roll really well. And board operating procedures, I'm glad to hear you say that you have them and you're using them, and you even referred to them a couple of times tonight. These are operating guidelines that are kind of like the team's game plan for success. So it's good to have a copy of those guidelines and go over them every now and then and review how you're supposed to run the meetings, and actually to follow the guidelines and stay within them. What that does is it ensures that you're consistent in how the board handles common situations. And really it models our commitment to the team, and it aids in our governance and public relations. Now I got this off your website and I thought this was really awesome. Bay City ISD's call to action, that all BCISD learners are equipped to pursue their limitless futures in an ever-changing global society. That is an awesome call to action, and something that if you carry that out as a board, you'll be able to equip the kids well. So how would you rate the Bay City team of 8? Just think to yourself now. I'm not going to ask you to say it out loud, but if you were to rate the Bay City team of 8 right now on a scale of 1 to 10, just in your own mind, in your own heart, how would you rate them? Rate yourself. What about your commitment to team goals? What about your understanding of your role? How about staying in your role? How about being prepared for meetings? Really doing your homework and digging in and being ready. And do you see room for improvement? Well, you know what I always say is that the biggest room in the house is the room for improvement. So if something we've seen tonight helps us to grow, then hey, that's a good thing. This wasn't just an hour and a half you'll never get back. We hope it's something really positive for you. So ask yourself, what can I do to improve the Bay City team of 8 and help the children of the district? Because what message are we going to send?
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
My iPad was talking to me. So how will the children and educators of Bay City define teamwork and leadership? Well, they're going to define it by our example. And so it really makes a difference. We've we've seen boards in the past from other districts that get very crazy in their, I don't know if any of y'all remember, there was a board not very far away where there was actually a fist fight between some board members at a board meeting. I've been here a long time, and it wasn't in a meeting I was at, but I definitely, it was all in the newspapers and everything. That's kind of an extreme example. And what it does is when there's that kind of discord among the board, it radiates down to the classroom and people start taking sides, and it even affects the kids. It really does. So as a team of 8, you're the role models and you set the tone. And what happens in the boardroom is reflected in the classroom. And I'd like to just go back to Dr. Scott's opening comments, because he was extremely complimentary of you guys and the district and the team that you've put together. And I'm not just saying this when I say that, I'm watching Bay City ISD because I think you guys are on a rocket, and I think you're getting ready to see some amazing things happen there because of the synergy that you've got going. So how can you improve as a team of 8? One thing I wanted to share with you, there is something out there. It's a tool that can help you, and it's called Lone Star Governance. It's an optional, first of its kind training initiative. It's based on research. LSG is a continuous improvement model for governing teams. That's what it's made for. It's made for you. It's for boards in collaboration with their superintendent who choose to focus intensely on only one primary objective, and that is improving student outcomes. So the purpose of Lone Star Governance is to provide coaching and support through continuous improvement framework so that the governing teams that choose to can commit and intensively focus on improving student outcomes. LSG accomplishes this intense focus through tailored coaching that aligns to 5 pillars of the Texas Framework or School Board Development. And in addition to the primary focus on improving student outcomes, LSG provides systems of governing local, legal and fiscal responsibilities. So what it includes is it includes 2 different things. If you go into LSG voluntarily, then you'll have a 2-day workshop that there's the intention of the workshop is to create a supportive space where governing teams can learn about and can prepare for the commitment to intensively focus on improving student outcomes as described in the Lone Star Governance Integrity Instrument. The workshop is a conversation about researched school board behaviors that improve student outcomes. The workshop draws from the participants' respective experiences and their school's performance. And the underlying belief is that leadership matters and that leaders' choices have a power to be transformative in the lives of our students. And there's another aspect to that too. Besides the 2-day workshop, then when you work with a coach, the coach helps you to commit continual improvement and will support the board and the superintendent in implementing the behaviors that have shown to increase student outcomes. So the continual engagement of a school board and a coach has really shown to do great things and make a big difference in successful implementation to improve student outcomes. So I wanted you to know a little bit about Lone Star Governance. You're probably going to hear more about it in the days and years ahead because it is a very good program for improving school board work. So I want to thank all of you for having me again, and I feel very privileged to be a part of your team like this.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank
Tony,
you.
appreciate- Okay, so before we adjourn, I'll just say I learned a lot today. Really appreciate everybody being here. I already emailed Linda and have some things on future agenda items that, we'll be able to put on there and discuss and go through together. So I think we've got great things ahead of us. Dr. Scott, you want to make any closing comments before I call for motion?
Yeah, I just want to thank Tony for leading us through this process once again. And as he was talking, just thinking about our engagement as a team, and what came up for me was healthy discourse or healthy debate, to where we can actually engage from our different perspectives as team members and disagree without being disagreeable. So those are some of the things that came up, and I'll go back to what Trent said. We all want this to be the best district it could possibly be, but just coming together in a synergistic manner. Tony, I'm gonna steal your word there, to ensure that we're all on the same page and that we're rowing the same way, because we're all headed in the same direction, and we all want the best for our kids and for our employees. But how do we actually engage in healthy debate to ensure those things are our priorities? So once again, thank you for leading us through this process, and thank the trustees for being here and being engaged as well.
Absolutely. I would like to make one other reminder that Linda emailed all of you that evaluation form, and that's how we're going to get you to sign in. So Dr. Scott and all the board members, if you would fill that out and click submit, I'll gather all that tomorrow and send it to Charlotte's secretary. And we'll get that recorded with TASB.
And Tony, I think you misspoke. We just had 2 hours of training, right? Not 1.5 hours. That was
We're going to call this a team of 8. And so you're going to get 3 hours of credit for it.
Great, even better.
Yeah. But that's how much credit you
double
get.
time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate you. Okay, I will, if there's no other comments from any of the board members, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
See y'all later.
Thanks, Tony.
So
Take
moved.
care. Bye-bye.
Motion made by trustee Klepek. Is there a second?
Second it.
Seconded by trustee Nelson. We will call for a voice vote. Trustee Klepek,
Yes.
trustee Tenon,
Yes.
trustee West,
Yes.
trustee Robinson,
Yes.
trustee Nelson,
Yes.
and trustee Scardamai. Yes, the motion is approved 6-0. Y'all have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good weekend.
Take care.
And look out for an email. We're gonna have another board meeting just for future reference. It's about that time that we sit down and talk about the superintendent and evaluate